My name's Toby, an account manager at MoneyCorp, and I support private clients such as yourselves on the call today with navigating the complicated market of currency exchange. Now, this is going to be a very fast whistle-stop tour, but I'm sure that today's topic will be relevant for all of you as we discuss what impact foreign exchange can have on your move when you're looking to move to France, and notably on your French property purchases, your pensions, and your movement of savings. We're going to be looking at what to look out for, what you can do to manage your foreign exchange exposure, and hopefully make something that sounds quite complicated and you're not used to very simple. So what's going to look on the agenda now? I understand that some of you may not be familiar with our services, so I wish to start with hopefully putting things into perspective before we go on to discuss the fundamentals of FX and what to be looking for before you move. We'll also have a brief look back at the GBP euro exchange rate during 2022, see why it fluctuated, how it fluctuated, and finally discuss a case study that hopefully will be relevant to yourselves so you can see the process, how things work, and how a typical property purchase in France will be looking for you when you eventually start to move, before we obviously recap and any questions at the end. So, who is MoneyCorp? Firstly, we've been in the industry for 40 years. We're one of the longest established foreign exchange providers, and essentially we're a non-banking provider of foreign exchange. Our headquarters are in the UK, that's where I'm based. However, as you can see from the map, we've got various international footprint and offices that have local bank accounts to support all our clients across the globe. For the purpose of today, I'm going to focus solely on UK residents who are holding pounds and moving those to euros, obviously to France. However, ensure that if there's anyone on the call that isn't in the UK and situated globally with other currencies, we can support the majority of the globe, over 120 currencies and 190 countries. So I'm sure we will be able to help. We're fully regulated in all areas we operate, and our clients are funds are safeguarded, segregated from our business, and therefore guarantee security when it comes to transacting your funds. 80% of what we do is particularly for private clients is property related, either directly or indirectly, as well as of course pensions and movement of your savings essentially to your European bank account. So before I start, I want to ask the question. Of course, you're not going to be able to answer me, but I'll just have a little think of, would you buy a property in your home country if you didn't know how much you're going to pay for it? I'm assuming the answer is going to be no, as obviously everyone wants to have some security over how much they're going to buy a property. They want to know how much they're paying for that before they go ahead and say, yes, we'll have it. However, when you are looking to purchase a property abroad, you need to be understanding that it's not as straightforward as this is the price, this is what I'm going to pay. Now, why is this? So if we have a quick look back at the 2022 GBP euro exchange rate, as you can see, there's quite a lot of variance between 2022 from the beginning of January all the way to December, notably in February, where we saw the peak at 121. That means for every pound you receive €1.21, compared to the lowest rate at 1.08, I believe, in September, following the political sort of issues that we found with the political government, with Liz Truss and other various things. Now, if we were looking at 250,000 euros in exchange from pounds, that's the equivalent of a difference of 25,000 pounds. So I'm sure you'd agree, over quite a short period of time, we've seen quite a lot of variance, and it could be considerable differences for your funds. Essentially, if that was a property purchase, that could mean you're paying a lot more for your property in September than you are in February. And if it's your movement of all of your assets into euros, it'll mean you'd be receiving less euros in September than you would in February. Now, why is this important? As you can see from the timeline here, there's roughly a 3-month period between when you first find your property and you say, yes, we'd like it, we want to put down a reservation fee, deposit, to when you actually get the keys. So during that period, you can see a lot of volatility and a lot of change in the price that you've actually agreed. So what we suggest is the earlier you get into contact with a currency broker such as MoneyCorp, the better, and start planning ahead so you understand how the currency market's moving, what to look out for, what the price is at the time of putting down the reservation fee, and sort of understanding your budget so you know how much you can afford to play with essentially in your funds to make sure that that price doesn't move out of your budget in 3 months' time when it comes to paying the completion funds. So what can you do? I mean, with a company like MoneyCorp, our day in, day out is foreign exchange. We have the tools available to you to really manage your finances, manage your payments, make sure that you're getting the best deal that you possibly can, and essentially we're a cost saving to the bank. So as I said, plan in advance. We'll very happily have a consultation with you free of charge, explain your requirements, the timeline you're working with, the funds that you're working with, your budget, etc. And we'll help you to map out a plan that's suitable for you to make sure that you're receiving the right amount of euros that you need to pay for that property in 3 months' time, or whenever it is, a couple of months down the line. Due to our expertise in the market and our longevity, we have built a panel of 18 banking providers that we work with on a day-to-day basis that are providing us with the best competitive exchange rates for our clients, hopefully yourselves, to really be able to get you the most euros that you possibly can out of your funds. Again, we also have the tools available, which I'll discuss very briefly, but if there are any further questions on these, I'll happily answer them afterwards or later by email, however you want to ask the questions. But firstly, what I would like you to be understanding is the forward contracts. This is what we typically see with property purchases and our clients that are really beneficial during these periods. And I'll go through a case study later as well to explain it in full. But this essentially means that you can buy the currency now, but pay for it later at a later date. So for those that are wanting some security around your property purchases, ensure that you're paying the agreed price of whatever it was, 300,000 euros, to ensure that you know how much that's going to cost you in pounds. You can agree a rate of exchange prior to your completion date up to 2 years in advance to ensure that the price that you're paying is the price that you've agreed. We also have market orders. So if this means if you've got some time in your hands, you have a bit of a budget to play with and you want to see if the market could improve for you in that period, we also have market orders. This means that you can speak with your currency specialists and say, look, the current rates are, I believe we're at 117 today. I'm hoping for before my completion in September, the rate's going to improve to 118, 119. I'd like to set a market order at 119. So as soon as that rate is hit, regardless of whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're not monitoring it, those funds will be automatically bought for you. So you have those locked in at a preferred rate, essentially saving you money. We also have regular payment plans. So this is very similar to direct debits. Those that are not moving permanently or are planning to buy a property and want to pay off the mortgage every month, but still live in the UK or the US or wherever it is, you can drip feed funds every month at an agreed price for those mortgage payments or those rental fees, or even vice versa. If you're buying a property as a holiday home, you rent it out during the summer, those rental fees that you're receiving, you can drip feed them back into your UK bank account as well. You also have online platform, so very similar to online banking. For those that use online banking, we can facilitate payments for you online. You don't have to speak to someone on the phone. You can set up those yourself. You can set up beneficiaries, paying solicitor fees, paying to third parties. It's all something you'll be able to do on our online app. Essentially, we don't advise. We provide guidance. So when it comes to speaking with us directly, everyone is allocated a market specialist. That's your direct contact. They'll be able to speak to you on the phone whenever you need. If you just want an update on the rates, what we think is going to happen, if there's, for example, interest rates at the moment obviously increasing monthly, and that typically in the short term will increase the value of the pound, or if it's euros, the value of the euro. And we can give you that guidance and explain this is where it's moving, and give you an informed, help you to make an informed decision on when's the best time to exchange your funds. The only thing we would advise is not to use your bank because of the cost implication that you receive when you use your bank. Obviously, security is brilliant. Everyone's used to using the bank for payments, but when it comes to foreign exchange, I'd really advise to use a foreign exchange specialist, because you firstly won't be charged any transactional fees that you will when you use your bank. You'll also have access to the cost-effective rates of exchange as well, that typically a 2% saving on what the bank will provide you, and of course also the tools I've explained to really help for those property purchases that are essential for sort of holding that, removing that risk out of the property purchase. So if we go for a very quick case study for you, so put everything into perspective. So as you can see on the right, we have the exchange rate between April 2022 and October 2022. And Richard and his wife found their dream home property where they needed to pay for the property at €300,000. So this was in June 2022. They were introduced to MoneyCorp and to undertake a currency consultation, understand their tools that had available to them, and really start getting the ball rolling for making those payments and understanding what payments they're going to need to make during the journey, and getting their assets ready for that purchase. In July 2022, they opened their MoneyCorp account and they had to pay the deposit, so 10% deposit of €30,000, and they had to do that at the time that they requested on that day. So they used a spot contract. So that essentially is when you buy currency now and you pay for the currency now for execution today. So they bought the currency at 117, and they discussed their options with their currency dealer, and they decided they wanted to use a market order at 119. So they set a rate of 119 for them to hope for that to be achieved within the next year. So from July, they didn't know where the exchange rate was going to move. They saw it was going to start increasing, so they set a rate of 119 to execute their funds. July 28th, 2022, that was reached, 119. We did actually further go to 119.5, so they didn't hit quite the peak of the market, but they did a very good job at managing their expectations and getting the most out of their funds. So at that point, they exchanged the additional 270,000 ready for their purchase in September at a rate of 119. Over the course of the next 2 to 3 months, we saw a lot of volatility in the market. Again, I believe this was around when Liz Truss was in Parliament for 48 days. Also the announcement of the mini budget as well. And as soon as there's any volatility or any concerns in a country, typically the currency tends to struggle in those circumstances. So that's what we can see on the graph during that period. Now, when it comes to their completion date on the 28th of September, the actual exchange rate fell to a rate of 112. Now, this is obviously very, very different to what they initially had when they first looked at the property back in June, and when they actually bought the currency at 119. So on their completion date, it was at 112. Now, as you can see from the considerations that we have down below, that is a typical variance of £15,000 from when they actually bought the currency to when the completion date was. So if they've left to pay for that property on the day of completion, they would have been paying £15,000 more than they would have expected at the day that they said yes, we'd like the property, which I'm sure you would agree is quite a large, considerable exchange and difference. And for those that are buying properties more than that, that variance will increase. So you need to be making sure that you are aware of the exchange rates prior to putting a property, prior to agreeing on a property, even before you go out on your expected inspection trips, and even before you're looking at the budget that you're hopefully buying a property for. So you need to be making sure that you're very much planning in advance. So top tips. I think we're just going to finish on a couple top tips. So yes, foreign exchange, as you can see from the exchange rate that we've looked through from 2022, it is a world of regrets because of the volatility and the uncertainty in the market. Because the rates are constantly moving, we need to make sure that we're planning ahead. So what do we suggest? Get familiar with the rate and currency tools available even before you find your property. This will help you to define your budget and feel more confident when you start to view your properties. You can get free guidance at this stage. This is when we suggest to get in contact with a currency specialist at the time of when you start to view properties. Make a note of the exchange rate when you make an offer. This will give you a benchmark to help you make decisions later on and will help you define a range of a low and a high, which will serve you as a reference and help you decide when a rate is good for you. At the time of making the payment for the deposit, have another look at the rate. At this point, you are looking to remove the risk and make sure you buy without a budget. Now, this is typically when we see a lot of people using a forward contract. So if they like the rate when they pay the deposit and they want some security, they'll ask to use a forward contract that is only needing a 10% deposit. So you do not need the whole completion funds available at that point. You can accumulate them over that period of between your completion date, agreed completion date, and when you actually book in the forward contract. If the rate is still within your budget, you might decide to pay the deposit at the rate and fix the rate. So that's again, yep, the forward contract as discussed. And again, if the rate is improved, you can decide to fix the whole price before then. And then going back to the example that we used of market orders, you can agree to fix a rate before a rate is reached in the hope that it was going to move in that direction. And finally, there's no right or wrong answer. The market's constantly moving. As soon as you book that exchange rate in that's right for you, it's right for you. And if it moves, then negatively, then you've beat the market. If it moves out of budget higher, then of course there is an opportunity that you could have purchased at a sort of more beneficial rate for yourself. But again, it's all hindsight in the end of the day. And if it works for you, then it's a winner. That's everything we covered today. I'd just like to make sure that you're aware that FX is of course a subject that you may not typically think of when you're based in one country, but when it comes to moving, it is essential for your move. So please do make sure you're planning in advance. But again, you have people there that can help you through the journey, make it easier for you, and explain how to do things. So don't worry and enjoy the journey. Thank you very much.